Sam's War. The wise tell us that we can never step into the same river twice, and most, if not all of us, would agree with that statement. Yet we live as if the river of life were a constant, unchanging, predictable certainty, which is really quite funny if it were not so foolish and utterly self-defeating. The river of life flows in every life, and although it may meander here and there, its destiny for each of us is the oneness of the great ocean. If we fight the river, we suffer. If we flow with the river, the journey becomes one of adventure coupled with delightful experiences and little idiosyncrasies. And yet we sabotage ourselves. It's really quite funny. Long ago, and yet just a moment ago, I stepped into the river of a family, as we all do when we come into this world. For me, as for you, the family river was a unique battle I could not quite understand, especially when I was little. On the one hand, my persona would seem to be appreciated, enjoyed, encouraged, and yet on the other hand, I was constantly being urged to fit in, change, tidy myself up, become part of a group or a way of thinking. I was very confused. I've written about this journey in my other books, so I won't repeat it here. But I don't really want to complain. I just want to help you understand that you've experienced exactly the same journey, although it's unique for you. It accomplished the same thing. It forced you into fitting in. Of course, I would have complained bitterly at the time. This conditioning and gentle persuasion to fit in with the one-size-fits-all template of our particular society, culture and background is everyone's experience. And of course it varies from culture to culture. Yet it is always perfectly suited and supportive of our awakening journey. The journey to the river, the journey to the ocean of oneness. My river was more than a tad murky, because it was clouded with dark grey family secrets, broken social norms, and hidden tales of deceit and twisting of the truth. None of this was to be mentioned, but it was emotionally felt at all times. As Shakespeare states beautifully, life is a tale told by an idiot. And this applies to all of us. This is because the narrator, your narrator, my narrator, everybody's narrator, is the idiot controller. The unconscious dictator who demands the story run the way they determined, according to their script, their rules, their ambitions, and most importantly, never allowing life to unfold like an organic flowering gift that it is supposed to be. My family's script was run by a mother who valued appearances over reality. This is not uncommon in those post-war days. Sadly for her, I chose to remain a scruffy little tomboy, which really upset her. Despite the pretty dresses she put me in and the hair ribbons, at the end of the day I was filthy and the hair ribbons were long lost. Her desperate need to be approved of by total strangers, who really didn't give a damn either way, was to cover the darker family secrets, which I knew nothing about at that stage. This included my father's previous marriage, a divorce, oh my goodness, and a half-brother who was never to be mentioned. Divorce in the 1940s was shameful, as was their choice, my mother and father, to live in sin while waiting for the legal papers to be drawn up. Today we find this laughable, but in those days it was a major blot on my mother's copybook and must be hidden at all costs. This was the darkness of control. My dad, on the other hand, accepted her control as if it was his karma. Not that he knew the word of karma, but he seemed to accept it in ways that surprised me. This is because he carried an inner guilt of his own, and she was quite easily able to help him deny his firstborn child and the previous marriage to keep up the appearances which were so important to her in the 1950s. And so my mother never left the house without a hat, without perfectly styled hair and lipstick. Appearances were everything to her. And so we never spoke of any of the unspeakable. The dad I knew, like many men that served in the World War II, was mentally scarred. He was a veteran and he suffered from what we call today the PTSD syndrome. He would rub his hands together frantically and furiously when stressed. He would also get strange little body twitches and fidgets. But I just accepted that this is where Dad was. It was the same for many of my uncles and many of my friends' dads. They all were scarred looking back. It was what we were raised with. He would laugh it off, joke around, show us his bullet scar on his leg. Part of his long finger was missing because it was shot off by the Germans when he gave the enemy the finger from his side of the front line. He'd done it for a dare, apparently. Later, he was captured by the Germans but escaped across the North African desert, guided only by the stars and a small dish of water. Yet he was never promoted. He remained a private. During his time in the armed forces, he witnessed all the special treatment given to the officers from the upper classes, while the inadequate rations were dished out to the lowly ranks. He witnessed many incidences of blatant officer incompetence and haughty indifference meted out to the lower ranks. The lower ranks, of course, were the working class men from Liverpool and other northern locations. Most tellingly, he witnessed friendly fire. Friendly fire is when you shoot your own side instead of the so-called enemy. And then he saw the usual propaganda of nothing to see here meted out, again by incompetent officers who cared little for the working class men who'd all died in the ridiculous situation. He saw the class system, the division between the upper and lower classes, in full control, full operation in the war, just as it was back home in England. As he later wrote in his book, slowly his eyes were opened to the propaganda of serving in the war that only supported the ongoing class discrimination and allowing the lower classes to die for their country. The final battle of the war was not only the Battle of Britain, but the awakening of my dad's inner knowing, which we might describe today as his soul. In the last few months of the war, long after he'd been stationed back in England after returning from those battles in North Africa, he was pressured by an upper-class officer to return to the front line and the impending Battle of Britain to fight, and he refused. He was duly charged and brought before a court-martial hearing because the UK, England, was still at war, and his refusal to obey an officer labelled him potentially as a traitor, and thus he would receive a visit by the firing squad. Yet despite all of that, and it must have been a terrible pressure, he remained adamant, unmoving, because he had literally had enough of the war. He saw through the subterfuge, he saw through the nonsense. Most importantly, he had witnessed the convenient bending of rules and special treatment for officers, whereas the poor working class were considered cannon fodder. This was his turning point, his awakening moment, an inner guidance, if you like, to get out of the conditioned treadmill of conformity and follow his heart. It was a gamble that he won, thanks to one sensitive medical doctor who declared him to be mentally ill. It saved his life, but he held on to inner guilt, and also the label or the certificate from the doctor which saved his life, but declared him to be mentally ill. He did not carry that well. When I was small, I would watch him every Sunday morning, handwriting his war story in long journals. He felt so compelled to write down his story. It's the story of a private who'd been bullied, pressured and manipulated with the usual propaganda, who stood up against the class system and lived to tell the tale, and have a family, and buy his own house, which apparently cost about £1,000, a lot of money in those days. He had been a private who had faced the firing squad, who had been labelled a traitor during wartime. Yet he would not accede his inner authority to those officers of rank who demanded he go and die for his country, because he knew the truth. The terrible facts of World War II are only now coming to light. These facts include the terrible fact that Churchill himself actually imprisoned English MPs from the opposition parties along with their families during the war. Most people do not know this, but it is a fact. This small but personal rebellion from my father became his personal story, and this is the book he named Lloyd George Knew My Father, which I published on his behalf in 2014. This is still available on Amazon. My childhood journey was one of feeling and witnessing the often frenzied denial of my dad's story by my mother, who interestingly wanted to offer a refined ladylike appearance to the world. And the truth, the facts if you like, were hardly supportive of her ambitions. Therefore my father's divorce, the child, the war were never mentioned, and certainly not the court-martial. They never came into the conversation, and yet I knew, at a very deep level, because I could feel the lies. Like my father before me, I saw through the social pressure and delusions of grandeur offered by my mother, and of course the teachers at my school, which focused on girls becoming competent housewives, learning to cook, clean and keep house. Needless to say, I was the rebel and invariably sent to the principal's office regularly. The only feather in my cap from those days was when we left the gas cooker running for about 10 minutes before asking the teacher to light a match. It was a very explosive moment. And of course, I got in terrible trouble, but it was worth it. The teacher did survive, by the way. Yet my dad understood me and my ache for liberation. Much as I constantly upset my mother, Dad enrolled me in a private college, which gave me the basic skills to escape the constraints of the working class and go out to the world, where I was assessed on my abilities, my talents, not my accent, not my appearance, or the school I had attended. It was a dead end in England. I knew that, which is why I went overseas, and all class was dissolved away. My dad, with all his flaws, was a great gift for me. Like him, I'm a rebel. You probably already worked that bit out. I'm damn proud of it as well. It's because of his focus that I later became a journalist and traveled the world, interviewing people and gathering facts and information. The murky river of dark secrets gave me many gifts, but most especially a deep inner knowing that, despite what may appear to be detrimental or difficult, life is a gift if you allow it to blossom within. Without my dad's stubborn determination, I could never have had the powerful adventure-filled life I've had so far. He inspired me to travel. He encouraged me to give him the finger, as he used to say, and stand my ground. He lost part of his finger thanks to a German bullet, so it's never been that bad for me. But I'm proud of that moment. The handwritten book was later typed up by my cousin Thelma Jones in Liverpool, and this became the book that's now available on Amazon and other platforms. All profits go towards supporting PTSD, which is a preventable condition created by warmongers of the planet, but we all know this. My dad's book is a story of a private who woke up to the fact that war is a game played by the elite, using the life force of the sleeping ones. He refused to play the game. He gambled, and he refused to listen to the blanket propaganda. Yet the dark side was that he felt guilty about this for the rest of his life, and therefore he died at the age of 55. Yet he was a free man, and what can be better than that? Inner freedom, no matter the circumstances, is the beloved ocean that your life river takes you towards. It is the profound truth that begins with the idiot's tale, full of sound and fury, just as Shakespeare writes. But in the end, the idiot takes you to choose the point of choice, the crossroads, between life and freedom, or remaining in the prison. And thus oneness with the beautiful ocean of wisdom stands before you the minute you allow yourself to soar with eagle's wings. As you read this book, or any of my books, know that they are written to gently, lovingly urge you to find your inner rebel. You cannot find the deep blue ocean if you get stuck in the billabong of obedience to dubious authority, and you know this. In fact, the fact that you're reading or listening to this presentation indicates you've begun to reach out towards the gentle river of freedom. Know that once you strive towards that river, any dark shadows of conditioned guilt or concern will rise up within, not to make you feel bad or to urge you to return to imprisonment. They rise up so you can see them for what they are, which is black clouds that you thought were solid walls that you allowed to hold you back and stay within the prison. Dark clouds, as you know, look menacing. They look solid, but they're just rainy mist. And if you can easily walk through them, you can sweep them to one side. Beyond your shadows, the shadows that you've allowed to imprison you, is the light, just as the sun rises above every dark cloud in the sky. Everyone at some stage experiences dark cloud foreboding. It is a fact and a confirmation that you are ready to enter the gentle river of life. Celebrate the black clouds. Walk through them. They're only thin clouds of mist, fear, guilt, or control. Beyond them, you will see the gentle river, and there, waiting for you, is a little canoe, asking you to step within and continue your forward journey. Blessed be.